Hey folks, this is Lee Jandro with Abundant Grace Fellowship and Lee Jandro Ministries, and I just want to wish you a happy new year. We're in 2025. 2024 is in our rearview mirror, so to speak. It's behind us. We can take the things that we learned in 2024. Some of them were good, some of them weren't so good, some of them taught us some tremendous lessons, and we can bring those into 2025. I've always been the guy who looks ahead. I've always been the guy who wants to see change. When I started Abundant Grace Fellowship years ago, I did it because I felt like there was some things that needed to happen. I left one of the fellowships that I was involved with, and I moved to this what we call Abundant Grace Fellowship. And I decided that we were going to major on love. Many years ago, I was asked by a guy in my church fellowship, um, maybe and we were having a conversation. He was on my board and he was one of my best friends at the time. He said, let's talk about love and let's make it, our heart value. And that's easy to say, but back then I was in a different place. The world was in a different place. I'm not belittling that. But when I started Abundant Grace, I decided that we were going to be a church that loved beyond the borders, that we were going to change lives and we were going to love people into change. And I looked at our fellowship the other day, and even just in 2024, I saw people who others might think would never make a change, and they changed, and they got better, and their lives got better. Circumstances didn't always change in their life, but things began to click. And 2024, for many people, I fully recognize was a difficult year. Uh, my wife today, we were going to hang out for New Year's Day, and we didn't really have any big plans. We were just going to hang out. A lot of times in our lives, because I homeschool my grandson, he lives here a lot of the time. We were just going to hang out. I don't know what we were going to do. Probably eat bad food, uh, drink a glass of wine, maybe a beer, eat some chocolate, and call it a day. her her brother's been in hospice for a while, and he started to cascade a little bit, I guess, today. And so we just looked at each other, and I just gave her a hug and said, "I love you. Go be with them." And that's not because I'm super benevolent. I don't want to say that. My wife has something to do and some place to be. So I sat here and I began to put together my message for 2025 and some of the things that I want to accomplish in our fellowship and in what I do, uh, not just with our fellowship. And one of those things was I want to teach our people how to occupy. I'm not going to tell you my whole message. I'll just tell you some of the bullet points. But I want to teach people how to occupy. Jesus says, occupy till I come. It's the story of the talents, things like that. You can read it. But I don't see it as a hardline thing. I see it as if we're going to be here, let's make a difference. The second part has to do with as I look at the things that I want to see uh, different for me, my house, etc., and what we do. I'm just trying to scroll down just to get my notes a little bit. I don't usually do this. I don't usually read off a screen, and I won't today because it distracts me. But the next one has to do with disciple, and everybody feels like they know what discipling means, and I'm not being sarcastic about that. I think the church in America and many of the places I've been, we're real good at teaching people to believe. I'm not so sure we're really great at teaching people how to disciple. And we got to decide what that really means for us. So as a body and as a person who's nearly 70 years old, I want to see that. The next one for me, we've done really well in our fellowship. I shared that we had given away almost somewhere in the neighborhood of almost 70% of our money that came in last year. And that went to the homeless, and that went to our community kitchen, and that went to the area of recovery, and that went to the mission field, and that went to a home for children, to young women who had been trafficked. And there was a number of those things, and we had a lot of offers on the table, and a lot more that could have been done had we had more money. And this isn't saying give us money. That's not what I'm saying. If you want to give us money, you give us money, and if you don't, that's fine. I'm not that guy, but I want us to get to the place where we don't think twice about it. I realized in my own life um, that there's things that I have that other people don't have. And it's not about whether I deserve it or don't deserve it. It's really more about what can I do with the money I spent? How can I make the world a better place? And so part of that opens up to the area of giving. I feel like I have a fellowship that is super benevolent. I would never talk about the money in this sense, but the fact that we were able to give a lot of money to those areas that I just described, we don't own a building. We pay rent and we don't pay a lot of rent and we have a great relationship with the people. And I say that because we've been offered buildings, but buildings cost money. And I, it's not about whether I want it or don't want it. I think it's really important that we change our community. When I walk into my local coffee shop and I see a car out back on the back row and somebody's been sitting there all night and it's 20 below and the car's running, my heart goes out to them. And so I know where my heart is. And I believe that one of the areas that I want to see more and more in people's lives is transformation. I want to see people transform to a way of life that puts God first and foremost. As I read about churches that are losing people and all that, I realized last week we had one of the largest weekends. And I know it was Christmas and everything, but the Sunday fell after Christmas. And there was a big meal put together by some of the folks in the church, and everybody participated in that. We had people from the homeless community show up. And you know what? I love it. And, because I love it, I could never stop doing it, you know? So 2025 has the potential to be a big area of change. I said in another forum, a non church forum, and an article I wrote an article called Being Positive, Being Resilient, and Being Intentional in 2025. And that's what I want to be. I'm not always intentional. Some days I just kick back and don't do a heck of a lot. My wife would tell you I work all the time because I love what I do. I love the communication structure. I'm involved with some great companies out of Australia. I'm involved with a great company out of Colombia now. It was El Salvador, um, and things like that. And I love the things that I do. I enjoy the things that I do. But I also plan my day so I get to spend time with my grandson. I mentioned that I homeschool him and I'm teaching him to drive and things like that. And, you know, I want to always see other people above myself in the world. When the scripture tells me to put others above myself, I want to be that guy. I want to be the guy who says, Joe's a good guy. Let me elevate him. Let me lift him up. And so one of the things that um, I'm going to be talking about more and more in the coming days, that's really it with regard to 2025. But one of the areas that I've talked about before in my church fellowship, and I haven't wrapped my brain totally around it, but I've been percolating it for years and years and years. There's a lot of things that we do in what we call church. First of all, I want to say I do not believe we go to church. I want to be very, very clear about that. We do not go to church. We are the church. And when we recognize we're the church, it changes how we process. If we teach people to go to church, they can decide not to go to church. But part of the disciple piece, way over here, that I mentioned earlier, is that when we teach people how to be the church, they don't get to leave. I'm not saying they stay in the same fellowship. That's not what I'm saying. These folks that are in my fellowship do not belong to me. They may identify with Abundant Grace Fellowship, but they are free to go and do whatever they want. Matter of fact, I came in there, there was things that happened last weekend in our fellowship. I didn't even know were going on. Somebody said to me, well, aren't you in charge or aren't you the pastor? And I went, Jesus is the head pastor. I just show up. I trust that when I show up, God's going to do stuff, and we're gonna do those things. I'm a big advocate of Acts 2. Acts 2:40. If you read through it, that they were out there every day and they were feeding the poor. And I know circumstances were different, but they were feeding the poor. And out of those things, they had to have deacons because those people were going to go out and share communion. In our fellowship, we do communion every week. I have people in my fellowship that would tell you they take communion 3 times a day. Okay? I spoke to someone the other day and they heard me mention something about it was about a guy named Smith Wigglesworth many, many years ago, and it had to do with taking communion multiple times a day. That's what they're doing. And they're doing that with one of their children. And like we gotta carve out time when we want to have, and I'm using the word discipline not in a negative way. If we're going to carve out time for the disciplines, the practices of our life, then we're going to have to sometimes give up other things. And I'm not saying give up just because you got to be sacrificial, but sometimes it is sacrificial. And so more and more you're going to hear me talk about we don't go to church, we are the church. And if we are the church, what does that look like? And like there's a lot of things that the churches do, and I'm not making fun of it because I was part of some of those. I'm not making fun of it, but some of those practices haven't changed where we are. People say 2024 was kind of the year of the Great Divide. And people were talking about civil war and everything. Let it never happen. I'm a follower of Christ long before I'm an American. I just happen to live in America. But things get taught, and I don't want to be the doom and gloom guy or the negative guy or the guy that bashes, but there's practices that happen in the church that should never ever ever be there. You know, when they talk about Jesus flipping a table or something like that, there's some things I'm not going to go down that road. That's too easy for me. Um, there's things that our fellowship is going to do and other fellowships don't have to do. And for me, it's not about how big we grow. Somebody said to me today, how many people you have? And I said, well, sometimes we have 35 people, but sometimes we have 1,000 people watching our message. And if we make church a confine, then those people really aren't the church. See, COVID caused a lot of people to go home who will never come back into a fellowship. They're not coming back. And I tell people that whether you come or don't come, I still consider you the church. I have some thought process about what the church looks like, but that's my own paradigm. And someone may come along and do something else, and God bless them. God bless them. You know? So 2025 for me is a year of transformation, personal transformation, as a fellowship and a gathering transformation, defining a little better what does church look like, discipleship. How do I help someone? You know, I don't want to be the guy doing communion. I don't want to be the guy talking about even an offering, despite the fact that I can tell you that we give away a ton of money. I don't want to be the guy. I don't want to be the guy. I want other people to teach. Somebody came and said, well, aren't you the pastor of the church? I don't think that's the right word. I am currently what's called the senior leader. You're not going to define it. Some people would say Lee is defined, he has the grace of a prophet. That's great. Apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher. You don't have to agree with that. You don't even have to believe it. I happen to operate, but that's because I believe the Bible to be truth in the areas of some of those things. I believe in the spiritual gifts. I believe in the gifts and the giving. I believe in the manifestation of God, 1 Corinthians 12. I believe in, what people will call the fivefold and things like that. But I don't have to argue about it. If you don't believe it, that's fine. I do tell people in my fellowship, please don't call me pastor. My name's Lee. If somebody's looking for a title, my place is not the place. And it's not my place, it's God's place. But I don't use titles. And I'm okay if a 5-year-old, as long as their parents are good with it, if he or she wants to call me Lee and his parents are good with that, I'm fine with that. Because I'm not looking for a title. And I'm not looking for any of that. And 2025 is a year for transformation and to see other people get motivated and to see other people get started and see other people change their lives. So that's where I'm at with Abundant Grace Fellowship. I do plan on doing some conferences and things online. I've been invited to some different places. I don't know if I'm going to go. I have a meeting on Friday with a friend of mine who travels around the world, and I don't know what we're going to talk about on Friday. We may decide just to do a, you know, back and forth on the internet and talk about that and do those kind of things. Um, but yeah, that's my heart. My heart is 2025 would be prosperous for you, not because I'm the prosperity gospel, but it's easy to take care of more homeless people when you have more money. It's easier to take care of people in recovery when you have more money. It's easy to take care of people who are food insecure and who don't have enough food to go around in their home. It's easier to do those things when there's money. So if the choice is between prosperity and poverty, both of which I believe are mindsets, I'm choosing prosperity. So with that said, I'm going to jump out of here. A little over 15 minutes, and I got things to do. I got to get ready for my wife to come home and do some work and just take advantage of the fact that I'm still breathing air. I'm going to be 70 years old, and it's just a number. I mean, I'll be painfully honest. When I was a child, my friends would tell you I didn't think I would make 21. I drank, I drugged, I did stupid things with motorcycles and cars and racers and things like that. And I just figured I was going to die young and leave a good looking corpse. And that didn't happen. So here I am, nearly 70 years old, and I get to talk to you. So if you're watching this, I love you. I care about you. If you guys need prayer for anything, if you just want to connect with us, participate in what we're doing, observe what we're doing, um, I'm not going to change. You know, I get called the love pastor, which is so weird because I'm absolutely not pastoral in any stroke of the imagination by my estimation. Um, but I do believe love never fails, and I believe that if we learn to love and follow Jesus, our lives get better. Happy New Year to you and yours. 2025 is a year to rock in. God bless you.